What we resist persists. When we are faced with challenges and new changes, the initial response of us is mostly to resist. So, resisting, is it the way to face any challenges and changes, or is there any other way to face the challenge with grace? So let's find the answer from verse 22 from Tao Te Ching. Hi, welcome back to Oneness. Today is day 22 and we will be looking at verse 22 from Tao Te Ching. And as usual, before we begin, let's observe a few seconds of silence. Thank you. So now let's look at verse 22 from Tao Te Ching. Yield and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. Wear out and be new. Have a little and gain. Have much and be confused. Therefore, the wise embrace the one and set an example to all. No putting on a display, they shine forth. Not justifying themselves, they are distinguished. Not boasting, they receive recognition. Not bragging, they never falter. They do not quarrel, so no one quarrels with them. Therefore, the ancients say, yield and overcome. Is that an empty saying? Be truly whole, and all things will come to you. Let's allow a few seconds to sink in. Alright. So this verse 22 is all about being humble and also being flexible. The first part of the verse is all about how we should be flexible in our approach when we are faced with challenges and changes. And the second part is all about being humble when we reach a success. And that way, how do we appreciate it and accept it by people who are around us? So now, let's go line by line and understand what Laotzu means in each line. The first line is yield and overcome. Since this line signifies and set an example for the rest of the verse, let me give you a few examples. The yield and overcome. When we look at nature, everything that we see, the five elements, all have this very nature of yielding to overcome. First, if you talk about water, when it faced with any obstacles, it doesn't fight. Rather, it yields and finds a different path. And think about air. You cannot contain air in any place. Even if the minute hole, the air will go away. And you cannot hold the sand. Or even if you think of earth as a rock, even the rock can give ways to the roots of a tree. And the same thing goes for the fire and space. We cannot contain them. They just yield. We cannot just stop them. They just yield. And that is a very nature of the nature itself. And that also brings me to share one of my personal experience from my life. Long ago, when I attended a course on NLP, there is one exercise whereas we have to describe ourselves metaphorically, how we see ourselves within our mind. The first time when I did, a long time ago, I came up with the metaphor of me being a warrior. And what is the nature of a warrior? The nature of warrior is to fight. Even if there's a clear way in front, the warrior without a fight is no warrior. So I tend to fight. So that was the image that I had in my mind. And that image, I was not sure it helped me in that point in time. Because every single situation, I used to see it as an obstacle. And every time I have to fight and overcome. But when I did the same exercise, after say 4-5 years later, the very same exercise, that point in time, I related myself with the nature of a water. I said I'm a flowing water. And what is the nature of the water? It just flows. Any obstacle that it comes up, it just flows around it. It doesn't fight with the obstacle. Instead, it just flows. And that metaphor of me seeing myself differently from a warrior to river helped me to just flow with life instead of fighting all the time with whatever the challenges I used to face. And also this verse I relate with martial arts. The great martial art teachers always say that we have to yield and they use the power of an opponent instead of using our own power. So when someone just comes and tries to hit us, instead of just resisting with all our energy, rather if we yield ourselves, we can use the weakness and the power of the opponent against himself. And that is what the yield and overcome as a word, as a line, talks to me about. And now let's quickly go through the rest of the line. Bend and be straight. So the bend and be straight is like a bamboo. How much ever the wind can flow over it, it just bends and touches the ground. It doesn't hold straight. Thus, no wind can break a bamboo because the bamboo stays flexible. Empty and be full. And this verse we can also talk about empty ourselves. It can be like emptying ourselves of the knowledge so that the new knowledge can come to us. Empty ourselves of an idea so the new idea can come to us. And empty ourselves of love every single day before we go to bed by showing so much love. The next day we will be filled with love to give it more because love is abundance. Wear out and be new. Get exhausted with your own action, that what you want to do, get exhausted. And the new things will come to you. The renewed energy will be with you. Have a little and gain. If you don't spend time on meaningless things, you will gain more time. If you don't spend your money on unnecessary things, you gain more money. And that way we go to have much and be confused. And that he refines about the more knowledge we accumulate and more ideas that we have, it is just going to confuse us with what to get and what not to. It is not going to help us with conclusion. So with that part of being flexible come to an end. And now let's talk about being humble. So the whole phrase of being humble, he talks about, therefore the wise embrace the one. The wise will embrace being with the nature of one. By doing that, he gives a lot of example, not putting on a display. The not putting on a display is, he doesn't seek attention from people. By not seeking attention, he gets shined. People find him. And also he goes back with saying that, not justifying themselves. When a sage or a wise man, he's in the power, he doesn't get into conversation and being rude. He just be gentle so that the people appreciate him. And then there is no boasting, no bragging, no quarrel. When the main quarrel is, they don't compete. When they don't compete, no one else compete with them. They are on their own path. So these lines also brings in one subtle thought is, think of it like, when we see someone's achievement, we love to congratulate them if they don't brag. And when someone who's our superior to us, someone who's our boss or someone, we love to take their orders if they are not being rude to us. And also, whenever we see successful people, we accept their success if we feel they are worthy of the success. So even in a movie, when we watch, we like that hero to win over the villain. And even in sometimes the hero is so good and righteous and virtuous that even if he dies, we feel that emotion within us. We feel sad. And that for any given reason, we don't like the villain of the movie who's projected as an evil, winning and succeeding at the end of the movie. That's why you see any film, in any genre, we always see the hero wins over the villain. And nowhere the villain succeeds over the hero. That's the same thing. So that is why we should stay humble. And that's why we should just not seek attention or brag about our success or even show our power. Instead, when we are humble, people come to us. So with that, let's go to the end of this. Therefore, the ancients say, yield and overcome. Is that an empty saying? Be truly whole, and all things will come to you. Here again, he concludes the verse with yield and overcome. And he talks about how true it is. It is so true. That's why they say, be flexible with your approach and be strict with your goals. Don't change your goal, but then be flexible with your approach. At the same time, we need to be flexible with our own self. What I mean by that? Most of the time, we set goals and routines based on our egoic self. What I mean by that is, we see or watch some video or we read some book and set high goals. Like, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. straight away. But then, we used to wake up at 7 or 8 a.m. So we set 4 a.m. Or when we want to go on diet or a food, we set strict rules for ourselves. Instead, it is better to be flexible with our approach. Take it slowly. So for an example, if you find yourself tired and exhausted, it's fine to take rest. If you find yourself over-focused for too long, relax for some time. Or if you find bored with your routines, take a break from your routine. It is all fine. That is all our ego tells us, oh, I have to be disciplined, I have to be strict. But it also, being flexible with approach, makes us whole. And one quote I like is, be flexible to preserve your wholeness. And Laotzu ends with, to be truly whole and all things will come to you. So to be whole, we have to be both flexible and humble. That way we can truly be whole. So with that, we come to an end of verse 22. And one actionable thought for today is, check your daily routines. And how are you approaching your daily routines? Are you flexible or are you rigid? And if you feel yourself as rigid, can you be flexible? Ask yourself. And if the answer is yes, find out what are the other options or the different approach and possibilities that I have so that I can make way differently so that I don't get stressed myself and snap. Instead, how I can be disciplined and follow towards my goal with the various different possibilities in approach. So when you ask this question to yourself, you will find that a lot of creative way to be with a routine that you set for yourself. And that way, you will never snap or never go out of the way. Rather, you become whole with oneself. So with that, let's end day 22, verse 22 from Tao Te Ching. Thank you.